So do those inexpensive extension tubes you see advertised on places like eBay, do they really work? Well, the answer is yes, but they do require a little bit more effort than a more expensive extension tube. Well, an extension tube is a device that is used to move the lens away from the camera so that you can do macro photography. And the reason why these are a little bit less expensive is because they lack the contacts that are normally found on a lens that allows the lens and the camera to communicate with each other. Now that controls your aperture blades, that controls your autofocus. And without those little things, then you're going to have to do your focus manually, and you're going to have to do your aperture manually. Now that's not too difficult of a deal. Let's talk a little bit about what the aperture is and what our challenge is. Because when the lens is open, and I realize this is not a 35mm lens here, but when it's on the camera, it spends its whole time wide open. And then right before the picture's taken, it stops down to its given aperture, or f-stop, and then right after the picture's taken, it opens back up. And that way the information in the viewfinder is always its brightest and its clearest. In macro photography, you have extremely little range of focus, called depth of field. And to photograph macro at wide open on your lens gives you like no depth of field. I mean like minuscule depth of field, like measured in like tenths of inches depth of field. And so it's nice to have a little bit of room to work with. Now if your camera is equipped with a depth of field preview button, then this is something that you can do. If your camera is not equipped with one of these, you're not going to be able to get your lens stopped down when you use inexpensive extension tubes. If you do not have this button, I would suggest finding some extension tubes that do have the contacts that allow the camera and the lens to communicate with each other. But if you do have the depth of field preview button, what you will do is you will turn your camera on like you're normally going to take a picture. You're going to set your f-stop for an f-stop that you're going to like, f8, f11, or something to that effect. You're going to engage, press, and hold your depth of field preview button. And while you're holding your depth of field preview button, you're going to dismount the lens. What that has done is it has locked in an f8 on my lens, or whatever f-stop you choose to make it. Then you will take your extension tubes however you want. I've got them all stacked together right here, but they simply separate, and you get as close or not as close as you want, and you attach that on, and then you attach your lens on. And now you're able to do some nice close-up photography. As we said, the camera and the lens can no longer communicate with each other, which means you can't rely on your autofocus. So what I would recommend doing to get your focus is, first of all, while hand holding the camera, manually move back and forth until you find a good point of focus, something that's pretty close. Now, at that point, you're going to need some camera support, because depth of field photography, macro photography has no depth of field, and it's really hard to hand hold this. So rough it out by hand, put it on your camera support, go to live view on the back of your camera, and then use your focus ring to tighten it up, to get your focus good and crispy and tight. You're going to have to adjust your exposure using your shutter speed only, because once again, these two don't talk to each other anymore, and this is now locked in at whatever f-stop you locked it in at when you took it off the camera. So as long as you're willing to work with those problems, or those idiosyncrasies of the two, then yes, the inexpensive extension tubes are a fantastic solution for you. If you're not comfortable with that, if you're not willing to put a little extra effort into it, then I would recommend getting a more expensive set of extension tubes that allow the two to talk to each other about that. Thank you very much for listening. My name is Larry Foster. I'm a master photographer and a certified professional photographer. I appreciate you tuning in. We do have a full-length class on macro photography. It lasts about 15 minutes, and it gives you all the different methods to do macro photography. Thank you for watching.